Hello Aries, welcome to the Plaid Sheep Oracle. I got this new deck. It's the Divining Poets deck, and there's several different ones. And the one I got is Emily Dickinson. So each card has a line or a couple of lines from one of her poems. And yours is the soul there all the time. And I already had a sense, of the card of what your energy wanted to say, Aries. But I did go and look up the whole poem. And it is, essentially how the mind can go off, right? The human mind can, kind of really go off on tangents or go to places perhaps that aren't useful to go to. But the soul is there all the time. The soul does not go off on these tangents. The soul sticks with you, with your life, with the direction, the way of your life. The sense that I have of this reading is that your soul wants to lead for a bit. Not that it wants to, take over and shove you into the back seat, but that it would like for you to really focus on coming into alignment with your wider self. I mean, that is sort of, what we always want to be doing in a way, right? But there are times maybe in life when the human self is really meant to lead, and that the soul really enjoys those times, sort of really being in the back seat and just watching with pleasure as you lead your life. But now your soul is coming forward more. We have imperfect harmony. We had some sun and now it's gone behind a cloud. Imperfect harmony. So you and your soul, in perfect harmony. And below that is this powerful move card. So there's something, Aries, that's coming up, some moment that was anticipated, that is now coming up, and that your soul is really interested in kind of in this moment and in the options that are going to be available here. The bottom of the deck is Earth Magic. And this is feeling particularly today like just getting ready to take a step. And a step that is a dance. So not simply walking along on the path, but dancing. I used to work in theater in a previous life. And, when you call places, whether it's for actors or dancers, and the curtain is down, everybody goes to their spots. And often if it's a dance, they start in a very, kind of formalized, very specific position. And that's sort of what this feels like. That you've just been waiting for the music to play. You're poised for the music to start, for the dance to begin. So then there's this power of purpose. And again, I have this sense that up until this point, whenever it is, that you've had a kind of general direction. You've been moving in kind of a general direction. You've had various experiences of different kinds. And there's been a kind of contentment to wander. But that is changing. That there will be a much greater sense of purpose from here on out. And with the oracle's gift, then immediately followed by the storyteller. You know, this feels like the oracle acting as the storyteller. So instead of the oracle attempting to divine what is going to happen in the future, the oracle creates what will happen in the future. And you here, you and your soul together, you in your wholeness are the oracle, writing this new story as you move forward. So interestingly, we have this float card. And here it's feeling, when you combine it with the cards that come after, as this moment. That you've been here in this moment, and actually the card below that is waiting for the phone to ring. Then we have this Six of Pentacles that feels like you actually being right down here, receiving instructions, information, learnings. Below that we have procession. So, right, the moving through life that you've been doing. And then actually we're going to go one more. Below that is the Emperor. So you kind of in your wholeness at the basis. And then at the bottom, we have this Forsythia Leviosa. Taking off the energy of the wider self of the soul. This really fun, bright, exciting, beautiful energy. So there's been, right, this energy kind of waiting, or of right, the moment to be right. Because then we have contemplation and this Four of Cups, which is sort of interesting because in the Emily Dickinson poem, she talks about the top of her head opening up and her brain going away. And maybe that is part of what is necessary to this. That the brain, the, sort of the planner, maybe the brain, and even in its entirety, we think of, if you've been with me for a bit, I talk about Ian McGilchrist's exposition of the two halves of the brain, where the right side of the brain is very holistic. It sees the landscape as a whole. It sees you as a whole. It sees situations in a really nuanced way. It sees things in context. And then the left side of the brain is really good at detail, right? It can take the one thing. It can focus. It can break things down into bits. It can make the map that is really very useful, right? A map is a very useful thing. unless you confuse the landscape with the map and think that the map is the landscape. So when the two work together, you get this beautiful synergy and partnership. But I want to say that this is taking the brain entirely, sort of the intellect as a whole, out of the equation. And really allowing feeling and intuition in a very felt sense way to lead the way. Because then we have this wash over me, which feels that way. That she's just, like the dance. That this is an improvisational dance. You start in this position. You've come here, you've learned a bunch of things, you've gotten to this point. And then we enter into something more improvisational, more felt, where you don't think about the dance. It's not like following choreography or counting steps, or even, counting the rhythm actively in your head, right? Really allowing the body to lead this kind of the animal self and the soul self, the non-intellectual parts. And then we have this once in a lifetime. So we are here, we have reached this point. When all various things have come together. When you have learned a whole bunch of things. Some were needed for this point, some were just for fun, for expansion. But things are now lined up. And it's time to go into this space. Now, I don't think that this is like a forever kind of arrangement that, to take your brain out forever. That there's just this period of time when there's an adjustment to be made. When there's this harmony to be achieved. Right? And we have the Hermit, but right below the Hermit is the Fool. So going from this kind of contemplative, perhaps introspective, maybe there's been self-examination, maybe there's been contemplation of where to go and how to proceed and these kinds of things. And moving into this Fool energy. The bottom of the deck is the Star. Right, the soul kind of here as Star. And then below the Fool, we actually have the World. And here, not so much an ending, but, the Fool sort of sitting up here contemplating this world. And then at the other side of that is the Wheel of Fortune. So spinning the wheel, moving into a space without really thinking about it in an intellectual way. And this is Aries territory for sure. That kind of Aries intuition that doesn't even, there may not even be thought. The intuition of fire is immediate. It just goes. right? That's Mars intuition, the that body initiated thing of movement. And here we have this Six of Pentacles repeating this. And here it feels a bit like an exchange or a maybe two things coming together. Right? The child and the elderly person combining what they have into something else. And, you know, you and your soul are you're both. So you are both, you know, the elder, you've lived your life, but you're also the child because you have that in you. And your soul, of course, has maybe had many lifetimes, but is the eternal child. So the combining of these two possibilities, these two energies. And then we do have the corpse. Here, because it is the Swords card, putting, and maybe not so much the corpse, but the sleeper. Putting the mind to rest for a bit. Not analyzing or questioning when you get an impulse, when you feel like going somewhere and it feels really good, that you just go. You don't question it. You don't try to figure out what it means or where it goes or, you know, what it might lead to. You just go. All right, because we have the Nine of Cups. Feeling. Mastery of feeling. Some of what you've been working on is knowing what does feel right. You know, what is the source, wider self-communication feel like, as opposed to what your triggers feel like. Being able to distinguish that. You've been doing that kind of, certainly for your whole life, but especially for this moment, this time. And then the Ace of Cups, right? Drinking solely from the Grail, right? Drinking solely from your own cup. So then we have balance. This is Temperance in this deck. But she always feels less like balance and more like power. Right? She's a water goddess. Right? Control of the seas and the waves and right, and this connection to, you know, the ocean of spirit. And right below her is the Nine of Pentacles. That self-purpose, the companion to the Nine of Cups. It is the emotional mastery. This is mastery in the physical world. And by being in connection with the body. Right? The intuition of the body, of the different parts of your body. And then actually below that is this Ten of Wands, which I think is meant to be sunset, but I sort of feel like it's sunrise. The dawn of the new day. And the bottom of this deck is both the sun and the Star. So there is clarity that will come. Now this card popped out of the deck, and it sometimes seems, like juggling things with difficulty. In the Smith-Waite deck, there's an ocean behind, and there's waves, and there's a ship that might, be having problems if things go wrong. But she has, much more fluidity. She's not having difficulty with these. She's not really juggling them, throwing them back and forth. It's like she can hold them still and the energy moves. So this is not manipulating with force the physical objects in your life. This is using your own energy, what you are in alignment to cause things to shift. And then there's these two facing off, the Princess of Swords and the Seven. And, I want to say that this is you here with all of, right? You've been carrying all these swords around, all these thoughts, all these things, all these, maybe they're sources of information as well. And they've had their uses in the past. But now you're kind of looking at her and she's like, no, you can just drop all that. You just need this one sword going forward. You don't need to be carrying all those swords around. And I think you're really feeling it. I think you're going to be so glad to drop all these swords that you've been carrying around. Because it doesn't look really comfortable, especially if they're sharp, carrying swords like that. And then we have this prince, drinking the cup again for emphasis. Now, interestingly, the advice came out from the Vera Sibilla Italiana, which is an oracle deck that has some things in common with Lenormand and similar decks. And the underlying here is celebration, happiness. The card under it is this falsita, which is, lies. I feel sort of sad that the cat is lies and the dog is loyalty in this deck, but I think it's more, with the cat, that it's more about a kind of excess independence. That you've been kind of doing it the hard way on your own. The bottom of the deck is the Messenger. Right? The message arriving. And then there's this really interesting trio. We have this, which is labeled as disgrace, but it's kind of, right, like the Tower today. Things burning up. Things coming to an end. And then there's this eternal flame of union. And this is actually an image, or a bit of an image, that came out for me in a personal reading that I did for myself, that had the Tower and then the Knight of Wands. And then the Six of Wands. So the Tower burning up, the Knight of Wands kind of lighting his wand in the flames of the Tower, carrying it, and then this jubilant Six of Wands energy, where this fire was distributed to other people and there was a celebratory air. And that's kind of a little bit of the message here. And what I'm actually feeling is that this first card that has all of these flames are kind of the way that life was, that you tried a bunch of different things. You had all these experiences. You went and lit a bunch of fires in different places, kind of, right? Or a bunch of fires were lit within you as you learned different things and had different experiences, tried stuff. But now there is this focused fire that is a union between your human self and your wider self, really becoming you in your totality. Really knowing and feeling yourself as this whole person. And then in lieu of the Six of Wands, here we have Fortuna. Fortune. And she is both, in astrology, there's a placement called the part of fortune. And it's one of the Arabic parts or lots. And that's a whole long thing. And often people talk about it as, the place where you're going to make your fortune. But in a traditional sense, fortune was just stuff that happened. Surprising things, right? Like the Wheel of Fortune. So not, right, but this is really fortune in that sense that we would like to have, right? She's got this cornucopia that is just, stuff is just pouring out of it. There is a joy, but there is also a sense of surprise. That wherever this is going to take you, there will still be surprises, perhaps even for your soul. Right? I think our souls are sometimes surprised. That they don't peek ahead. And that even, there's only so far they can peak, right? Because energy changes. Things shift. So that there are lovely surprises and good fortune and affluence ahead, Aries. Aries. So nice, so good. I don't know, I've started this thing now where I'm sort of prompted to take out like extra cards at the end. I'm not quite sure if this will continue, if it's just for a little bit as we're in this really changeable phase. Oh, of course, the Wheel of Fortune on the bottom, or the top rather, the visible underlying. And then there's the Knight of Wands at the bottom. Oh, we have strength. And I think there is, right, there's a new strength to be had in this combination. And then we have the Moon. And then there's the Four of Cups, right? Take the cup. Take the cup, Aries. Because you can. You are always, always, always free, Aries, to make choices. Your soul will never override you. I don't believe that the soul bulldozes itself in that way. That the soul allows, and it is in its own allowing that you may change course. But you could reject the cup and, you know, remain firmly intellectually in the driver's seat. But there is enormous strength to be had from this integration and really aligning with and following the soul's choices and direction. Aries, I hope you do it. I wish you the very, very best going forward on this journey. And I will see you next time. So long.